Hello, dear friends, vocal improvisers of the world. Welcome back to In Conversation, our series of interviews with members of the global vocal improvisation community. My name is Jaka Škrapin, currently live in Slovenian seaside or near the sea, not as close as I would like to be this afternoon. And as always, I want to welcome you also on the WELL's website, thewellvocal.com, where you can see the global map of events, but also the resources page and much more. I hope you've been enjoying our content right here. The last bigger event that we did was the Body Rhythm Hamburg takeover of their 10th anniversary festival. And this is also where I last saw in person today's guest, Meryl Martins. She's an amazing and extremely sought after conductor, educator, vocal painting extraordinaire, but also much more. So let's see if Meryl is able to join us in this conversation. Calling the Netherlands. Hi.
Hey, Yaka.
Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you for inviting me to
Of
join.
course.
How cool.
Exactly.
I'm
Is this your first live on Instagram?
This is my first ever live on Instagram.
Well, welcome. We're going to try and make
Yes,
it
thank you.
super friendly. I know you're super busy these days, as always. And so we had
Not
to squeeze
always.
this in. Not always. Okay. Well, as in this summer, festival season. So we're very happy to be chatting with you. And let's go straight in. Maybe for the people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about your journey and especially maybe how it led to the vocal leadership program.
Oh, that's a big question,
I
Yaka. Okay.
know, but for the vocal improvisers,
Yes,
whatever you
okay.
feel
Okay,
it's
okay,
worth
cool, cool.
mentioning today, whatever is alive.
Okay. So I'm an all-round educator, teacher, vocal leader, and I very, very strongly believe that in choirs and school classes and basically any singing groups, we should add improvisation to give them a little bit of self-confidence, to have them feel more connection, to have them feel like they can do something in the moment and that they always have ideas. And also that it's important for me personally to have a clear frame for them to feel secure, to feel safe, to know what is expected of them. And about 15 years ago, I discovered, I'm from the Netherlands, by the way. About 15 years ago, I was already working with choirs, and I already wanted to trust my choirs to do a lot without me in the process, also themselves, by just opening their ears and singing together. And then I discovered that there is a person in Denmark called Jim Daus Janu, who was running a master's degree for choir leadership, where he combines improvisation and scored music. So I took my master's there. I think it's like 13 years ago that I started. And after I graduated, I started a similar education in a collaboration at first here in the Netherlands. So it's the Royal Academy of Music in Denmark, where Jim is teaching. And I have been teaching vocal leadership here in the Netherlands, first in two conservatories, where we started like to expand possibilities for European choir leaders, and in my case also music teacher, where they can learn how to get comfortable with these methods, this way of thinking. How can we have the students or the singers lead each other, take responsibility, improvise with their voice, improvise with their body, to create music in the moment, and to have them feel proud of what they do.
Thank you. And so then
Yes.
when you brought the method over, how was the beginning stages? Was it warmly received? How would you say was that first kind of couple of years of establishing it, or for you kind of developing the program at the beginning?
All right. Well, I'm from the Netherlands. People in the Netherlands usually are super, super curious and ready to jump in whatever. We have opinions. We are not easy. We don't have that much tradition to be proud of. Honestly, maybe because we jump into every new thing that we want to find out what it's about. And that's also what I experienced when I started vocal leadership, is that many people in the Dutch scene were curious and wanted to join. So I guess from the beginning on, it was like a warm bath of people. Yes, finally we have this thinking in the Netherlands, this way of looking at vocal music and improvisation and choirs and rhythmic music and everything. So from the beginning on, I guess I had a lot of support and a lot of people who showed interest in learning these methods and this methodology.
And for you, what is at the core of it? Maybe if you look at the whole journey up until now, which part of it makes you the most excited right now in this current
Mm-hmm.
version of your
But
pedagogy?
that's interesting because you're asking two questions at least in
At least,
once.
always,
Yeah,
always,
but
at least.
it's like, Meryl, you want to go live on Insta and speak about your passion? Yes, but stop
Yeah,
me when it's appropriate, right? Because otherwise I just poof, I take
you
off
go,
and
you go and poof. People
never
will
go
follow.
back. No, the most important thing I feel is that also in adult choirs, we are basically kids that have grown a little bit older, that want to have fun and feel connected and feel proud of what we do. And in order for that to happen, we need to let go of a part of judgment that came when we grew up about who we are, what we can do, and how perfect it has to be. Um, and we need some sort of safety feeling where we feel comfortable enough to go and explore our own creativity. So, like these two things, a playful and positive approach, and a space where everybody gets to be whoever they are, however they come, with whatever musical ideas that they have, is like at the very, very core of everything that we do with vocal leadership in the Netherlands. And that's like, I know in different countries, many students mention, like, I've had this experience when I was on the conservatory where my teacher told me that it was really not good, so, or I have traumas because of musical theory things that I could not work out, or like a negative approach in music, saying to your student, you are doing this badly, this is not good enough. It can actually do a lot of damage. And that's why I feel like in this education, at least in the Netherlands, it's really a new approach to start from, okay, you can already do this. This was amazing. You know why? Let's just put into words what was good. And then to give the students a new challenge. Like when you come back next class, try to do something in like a different meter, a different mode, use words in your impro, write your own arrangement, something that they have not done before. And then let's see if we can have an equal success experience with you stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing something very new. And that approach, like the positive approach, for students, where they go from success to success, hopefully, I think that's pretty new to Dutch people, because we tend
Mhm.
to have an opinion about what's wrong. And for music, that's interesting. I don't think for me that's the best way.
And that's also a paradigm shift right there. So maybe the next question then, I know it's another big one, but tell us where vocal leadership is now, if you have to describe the program, and where is it going, maybe for the next couple of years, at least.
Yes. Well, we have been around with vocal leadership for 9 years. And first we started at two conservatories in Tilburg and in Rotterdam. And the last, I don't know, 7 years, we have been at Codarts only
Mhm.
for a full-time master, our part-time program, inspiration days, a minor of music, all of it combined. And after summer, so this year, 2025, the full-time master of music and the minor will stay at Codarts, because it's part of the structure that we have in all of the EU with ECTS points, where you can get the official master of music degree. But all of the other activities, like the part-time course, our vocal percussion course that we run, the inspiration days, the alumni days, we are going independent, and we can organize these events all through the Netherlands and outside, if we feel like we want to. So that means that from fall 25 on, vocal leadership will be a moving institute. Yes, so we can come to your place if you want
Yes.
to, and then sing with you, or spread methodology and thinking in different parts of the Netherlands, at least to start with.
Amazing, amazing. And then maybe let's move to vocal improvisation in higher education overall, because you're someone that has, been part of a probably really intense process of creating the masters. In other institutions, in other countries, vocal improvisation is sometimes represented in higher education, but in smaller kind of chunks. So, if you'd have to say what are the major challenges or opportunities of how vocal improvisation could become a bigger part of higher education programs, maybe to focus on Europe or Western Europe, what do we need? What are we missing? What could we do more of?
Yeah, right, exactly. I think there is like a little bit of a different bubble in like the jazz and pop scene, where mostly in jazz, of course, students are taught how to improvise, but more in a solistic way. And then the choir leading world, where only a couple of programs in Europe actually implement vocal group improvisation into choir leading education. And I feel like basically all over Europe, there's only a couple of opportunities that I know of where you can actually study to become a choir leader that is not only based on classical sheet music. So, and in those places where you can actually teach, where you can actually learn to combine being a vocal leader with improvisation, there we are very much focused on like the group dynamics and how can we improvise something with a group, opening our ears. I know that, in my opinion, what I've come across in the last couple of years in the Netherlands in conservatory is that everything completely depends on the people sitting in positions that make the decisions, people in the position that make the decisions for who is allowed to teach in what program. So what we need is people like you, Jaka, people like us that are in those positions to make the right choices to create something in places that um, educate people that can spread this further when they have finished their education, to just plant seeds, to open up, to just in a playful way work with the body and with the voice and see the benefits of that on the longer term. So in the Netherlands, at Codarts in Rotterdam, I have been very fortunate that the boss of my education fully trusted what I did. So I got like complete freedom to shape the master in the way that I thought would be best. So curriculum wise, I could brainstorm with my direct colleague. Her name is Marlou Vriends. You might have heard of her.
Mm-hmm.
About what we think is relevant and important for an education for choir leaders and music teachers. So we could just put in a little bit more or a little bit less of vocal improvisation. But I think in many cases, in many countries, there's like a curriculum and you have to really match all the different things and explain why you are doing this and why it's important for vocal improvisation to be a part of that. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, aren't I? Because like everybody knows from this scene how valuable it is for people in leadership positions to be able to use their voice and improvise with groups together. And it's about the people outside of this bubble that we need to reach out to, that they start to acknowledge that and experience in the first place.
Mhm. So vocal painting, I would say, is an example of, weaving improvisation in and still being part of like a long-standing tradition or the choir scene. So I wonder, how do you see the presentation aspect? So I know there are all kinds of other bubbles of improvisation, but as you say, those decision makers are there and they're probably going to stay there for quite a while. So when talking to them, when creating a proposal, when speaking about improvisation, how do you approach the presentational aspect? What kind of values could we talk about? How could we describe it in order to maybe shift some of the perception of it just being for like a small number of people somewhere in the forest,
Hmm.
running around and having a great time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but I think the word improvisation can also trigger different thoughts with people that are not fully aware of what it is that we do. So we might need like a different vocabulary also to speak about this part of using the voice in a more free way and a more connecting way with the people that you make music with. Because if you use the word impro, it's like it also scares people away sometimes. Is that
A
your
lot of
experience as well?
times, a lot of
A lot
times.
of times.
Even for people when you promote activities, I'm not so sure that improvisation helps unless they're really experienced or they've already studied, then it's something closer to them. But overall, I think the decision makers do need, yeah, for the activity to be presented through other terms and also maybe for the
Yeah.
effect of the activity to be presented very specifically.
Hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I would present it, I think, more as playfulness rather than improvisation. And I think, it's interesting because my starting point was choirs. So I come from the choir scene where people sing together, but they have sheet music, they have their songs. Some sing by heart, some actually not even sing by heart, choirs. And then from there, I've been trying to, together with people around me, obviously, implement improvisation as a tool for the singers to feel more musical, to feel more seen, to take more responsibility. So then, and in order for that to happen, and in order to accommodate the safety that we just spoke about, it's very important that we frame what we expect of them to do. Because if you go to a choir, they have been singing SATB for 10 years, and then you go and ask them, yeah, go and improvise, you can do anything. They probably all run out, right? So we need a very clear frame, like, okay, this is your melody, but what if you would have a little bit more freedom? What would you do? Like, can you add a second voice to this melody yourself by just using your ears? For some, that's already super scary. um, and that's like 5 steps away from people standing in a circle and saying, okay, whoever has an idea, just step in and we'll go by ear and just improvise together.
Yeah, and of course, there are still different people with different interests, and there are many improvisers who would never even want to sing in a choir. It's something too structured for them, and they want to be able to have their own agency and create their own parts at all times, and that's
Yeah.
fine too. But I think
Yeah.
there's lots of intersections where there's more space for exploration, and also for me personally, sometimes in vocal painting environments, of course, for me, they seem a little bit safe because I'm a crazy wild person. So there's also a question of how those environments can be loosened up even more without people feeling like they are too exposed or something like that, and which I think is happening. But I think we also then need to talk about maybe the artistic side, which I think sometimes it's the real counterbalance where you learn something pedagogically, but then if you see a good enough artistic example, I think those can also shift the perception. So I
Hmm.
wanted to ask you about Blank Slate, the vocal painting opera, but you also
I,
have other examples of the artistic. Yes.
Yes, I mean, I would love to talk to you about that. And but I was just thinking when I heard you speak, like before we
Mm,
go to that topic, is it
sure.
okay if I just
Of course.
get but because you've been mentioning vocal painting quite a few times, but I'm not even sure that everybody that watches this Insta Live is aware of what vocal painting is. So maybe I should just
Let's do it.
explain. Yeah,
Halfway through, it's a good time to
right.
recap and just do a
Okay.
quick introduction. Yes.
Right, because you asked me about vocal leadership. Vocal leadership
Hmm.
is the name of an entire program that I use that I run together with others. But that's based on like scored music and improvisation. For both, we actually use a sign language that was created by Jim Dasviernu from Denmark, that originates from sound painting that was created by Walter Thompson, with about 75 signs that you can use your hands for, that will shape the music in a certain way. So you can just with one hand sign, you can tell the entire group to sing staccato or to hold the note or to have a break and come back. And you can use all these hand signs in any situation. So um, I just spoke about like the choir that is used to singing SATB, and then if you give them like little tasks to do something, then it could just simply be create a harmony for this line, or uh, add a new idea, or solo a little bit, all the way to like we are doing a complete free improvisation, and at some point somebody steps in and just uses the sign for like an entire break, and then sure, let's go, we trust each other, and coming back, and everything in between. So the vocal painting system, you can also use it if you study repertoire. Like at the moment, energize everything, take out the pitch, and just speak the rhythms so that we can interlock the rhythms and not get focused by the intonation, for example. So the sign language can be used for many different things. And I can imagine that the things that we mostly see in, for example, vocal festivals and education, is coming from the choir scene, and then adding a little bit of
Hmm.
the vocal painting to create a little bit more freedom on top of what you do. But actually, what I think is super cool, we can do this the other way around as well. I mean, I'm really, really
Let's
inspired.
do it the other way around. We need more of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Come
So
on.
I'm really inspired to go from like completely free improv, everything is possible, and then to just like with one hand sign do something that everybody knows what to do,
Yeah.
and change leader and everything. So that's just like vocal painting is the sign language that we can use in many different ways, and that's up to the group actually to how to facilitate it. But my background, again, I come from the choir world. I don't come from the vocal improv world. So I add improvisation from the choir world to open them up. And this vocal painting tool, I've done many workshops and open singing and yeah, teaching with the vocal painting. And then this guy, his name is Sean Doherty from Ireland, saw me do something in a festival called Leading Voices in 2022. And then he asked Jim, who was also there, like, has this ever been used in a dramatic context? And Jim said no. And then on his flight back home from that festival, from Amsterdam going back to Dublin, he composed an opera where vocal painting and audience participation is like the basic start for all the music. So it's like two people on stage that are in a character, that have lines, that there's like monologues, dialogues, libretto, there's an aria, everything written out. And then there's music composed for the audience that we can shape in the moment with the vocal painting signs. And a few days after that, I got an email from him, from my friend, saying, "Hey, Meryl, I've written you an opera." When does that happen to a person? So I was like, Sean, okay, what? We need to go online and you need to tell me what you're talking about, because what is this? And then, like, it's a tragedy. Like, the entire form of the performance is an opera. There's a libretto, there's an aria, everything, different acts, I guess in English. And we started to work on that in the last year, and we have played the opera now twice. So this is called the vocal painting opera, or audience opera, or interactive opera. From beginning to end, there's two people on stage, and the audience is like the third main character. And we are absolutely, from that point, we are absolutely improvising. I mean, if you do an interactive opera and you ask the audience to speak back or sing back, anything might happen, and that actually does happen. Also, when we played the last performance last Sunday, actually, a couple of days ago. Things that you don't expect. Like, I'm in the middle of my monologue and somebody starts to speak back to me from the audience, because it's like an interactive setting, right? And then what do you do with that? So it's a very innovative, new, inclusive, and interesting process and product for me personally. So I've been very fortunate that Sean felt inspired to create this.
And also, that's another paradigm shift right there with the audience and the performers, which of course can also bring so many things up. But I think opening these doors and seeing what happens is really important. Then maybe I wanted to ask you about your own artistry, and because I know a lot of people that follow the Wells page and a lot of vocal improvisers spend quite a lot of time developing their artistic voice, maybe more so than the pedagogy. So I just wanted to ask you about your relationship with your voice artistically in a performance setting. How do you see the balance, between leading and artistically expressing, and maybe what are your artistic interests for the future?
All right, a super good question. I mean, I've been taking many steps towards acting in the last year, because in the opera, I'm in an intense role, and I want that to be credible, because I think, like any artist in the world, or basically in the music industry, or even arts, wants to do something that feels credible for themselves, right? So if you do something that is out of your comfort zone, I think, yay, go do that, go figure it out. But also, it's like super scary, because we have our own judgment about what we do there, and we have others' expectations of what we do there. So me just mentioning for like choirs, yeah, go and improvise and just don't judge and just be playful. That's kind of what I had to teach myself in the last year. Like, okay, I'm learning how to act. No, I cannot like professionally act yet, but let's go and figure it out. And watch myself, evaluate myself, and go from my intuition as a musician and performer. And in this opera, I also have to sing quite a bit of solo. There's big improvised parts where I just solo in the moment and see whatever comes, and there's also moments where I have to sing an aria with a lyric and a melody that is written out by the composer. That is like super high soprano range, and I've always been a low alto, so I was like, am I really going to do this? So I took some voice classes in the last half year from people that I appreciate very much in the vocal scene. Like, how do I approach this? And the main thing that actually got back from those voice classes to me is like, just trust that you are not only a teacher or only a musician, you are just an artist. And like everything in that range is for you to develop. And if you at some point want to go a little bit more in this direction, and at another point go a little bit more here, go and do that, because let's not put things in boxes. I mean, we should also not deny that you can um, have more and less professional levels for all arts, but it doesn't mean that we are not allowed to take a step sideways and do something new. So I have been more or less focusing on teaching, on creating circle song elements with my students as we go. Um, and in the last 2 years, I have been discovering more about myself as the performer. So I have been singing with vocal groups. I have been in more situations where I was actually soloing improvise with audiences. And now I'm also acting with this opera. So for me, that's like the next step. So I come from teaching, but I run into so many people that say, wow, I've been a performer all my life, and now I want to teach because that's how we make the difference, and that's how we
Mhm.
inspire the new generation. And I said, yes, because that's where I started from. Like, there's no right or wrong route, right? It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe then a question just about that moment that you were mentioning, because there's quite a wide gap between opening up a score that already exists for a choir and then doing a whole circle song from nothing. So maybe just a question for you as a teacher. How do you approach all of that range for yourself or for others? And I'm mostly interested in the one where you create from nothing. So how do you approach someone being comfortable in that position? I know it's a long journey towards getting there, but I always like to ask people about the void and the place, and then where does the music come from for you and how do you approach it?
Right. Well, that's actually quite clear. I mean, I started with that today. I was just home 2 minutes before 5
Yeah.
from yeah, from running an atelier in Utrecht in the Netherlands for open singing. So I have 12 conductors now in a group, and we have just today been sharing thoughts about like how can we connect as many people as possible in the moment without sheet music, with just our voice. Um, and then what I do is to just have them experience vocal painting gestures, and also, for example, the solmization system that we use for singing, is just to have a very clear first step, because then they feel like, okay, the music, I got it, but now I need to learn the signs. So first I teach them a line, then I teach them like 10 vocal painting signs, and then we play around with the vocal painting signs and the line so that the line feels secure, but then they can focus a little bit on the signs. And when I feel like, okay, now they got the signs under control, now make your own line. Or now let's add another line into this composition atmosphere that we are already based on, like a canon or some music that I created. Now, what's your musical idea? And then I can first say, go explore a little bit, sing a little bit of solo, and then you will find nice musical ideas. And from there, create something on top of this. All the way to, okay, and now let's just step into the circle, and from complete silence, go and interpret and feel whatever. And from there, create a completely new idea that just comes from you. So I think that's like from a very small frame to like a huge frame in the end, right? And
Mhm.
every part of that, every time we widen it a little bit, it might be uncomfortable for people, and we want for all those steps in between for them to have a success experience, because otherwise we lose them if they get insecure about their things.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say then I wanted to mention something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is that I've been improvising in a particular way now, let's say since 2019, quite intensely. And it was linked with Rihanna, linked with Bob McFerrin, and that way of approaching vocal improvisation. And recently, I really needed like a big influx of free improvisation. I really needed to go to more free improvisation sessions and things that are like really outside of the vein in which I was kind of it was narrowing a little bit. So I wanted to ask you now at this stage, how is it to improvise without the science? How is it to make improvise music with the voice without any of the signs? Does that happen for you? Do you enjoy that space? How does it feel after all these years?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been very inspired for years with the methods that Rhiannon created with her vocal river, and I absolutely love doing that. And actually, I teach vocal improvisation also quite a lot, not only to my students in vocal leadership, but also to musical theater students at Codarts, where sometimes we have a project where we do a lot of vocal improvisation, and then I use all these forms because it's about them creating in the moment and responding to each other in the moment. And there's like such a difference like in different target groups that you do these type of exercises with, and the outcome and the amount of joy personally that I feel. I think my the amount of joy or excitement musically that I feel quite strongly depends on the people that I make music with, because I'm a super open person. And if I sing with you, Yaka, and you do something that inspires me like crazy, then I'm like also on fire. And if I feel like you are doing something a little bit more basic, it's also okay. Then I have to search for it a little bit myself. But it can also happen that I feel not so much connection with the people around me. And then I have a little bit less fun myself. And that's something like, um, for me, the ultimate moments is where we have like really the feeling that we are connected and that we can rely on each other, and that the other person have my back and I have their back when we are singing together. And like even more, the fun is more there than for me to deliver like a perfect solo or something, like in the connection with other people.
Mhm. Yeah, and the relationality. So for the last couple of minutes, I want us to do a little bit of dreaming together because, the well is based on connecting vocal improvisers and different ways of approaching improvisation. So I just want us to maybe envisage these connections and the communities and how we want them to coexist, communicate, cross-pollinate in the future. And also maybe how we want us as practitioners, artists, facilitators to be supported. So it will be a question around, okay, what would really help? I don't know, on institutional level, a European project, or what kind of support do we need to make more space for the thinking, connecting, and how would you like all of these improv communities to grow together over the coming decades or years
Oh yeah.
or centuries? You pick a timeline. It's up to you.
Oh, wow, wow. Okay, so we're dreaming now a little bit,
We
huh?
are
I
dreaming.
will. I think honestly, everything originates back from just being playful and kids, and going back to in-person connections in the moment. And I do feel that even though at the moment we are on Insta live, I do feel that in-person contact is going to be more important in the next years to come than it has been in the last maybe 10, 15 years. And I do feel that we are about to shift to like a more um, a time where in-person contact will be like the highest value again, as it has been a long time ago. And I would love if we can um, encourage as many people as possible to experience how easy and how valuable this in-person connection can be if you actually sing together. I mean, it's all scientifically proven that things like heartbeats, they sync, and we create more endorphin and stuff like that if we are singing together. So I think that will absolutely be our future, regardless of what we decide that we want to do. I think the world is shifting there, and that's me in a very optimistic and positive worldview. Because obviously other things are also happening at the same time that might also frighten us a little bit. On the longer term, I think You know, there's so many people also, like I just said today, I'm teaching people, our conductors in open singing. This is where we make the difference. So the difference is not so much like what do we do to create on a large scale that everywhere in Europe people are going to improvise. I think the difference is created if we just speak in one-on-one conversations where people feel inspired to start and use their voice and improvise and sing together. And this will be like an oil stain, if you ask me, that
A
will just
positive
spread.
oil thing.
A positive oil stain, absolutely. And that might be super naive, huh? But I think that is the best we can do. Like in these difficult times, what is the answer to all the in the world? Is to sing together and to be playful and to be positive and to change the world one by one and have people experience what it is that vocal improvisation and singing together can actually do, how it can make you feel. So let's have as many people that feel that and that want to spread that in our boat as possible in the next, I don't know, 25 years. How's that?
That's that sounds perfect.
And
Oh,
honestly, Jaka, if I may add, you are
yes,
making the difference by creating this platform. I mean, I was looking this because I'm a member, obviously. So I was looking at this map again. It's incredible what the Well has been putting together over the last years, and I think this was very much needed. And I'm very happy to be at least a part of this community. I feel like I'm a part of this
of
community because I
course.
strongly support vocal music improvisation. But people like you, that's what we need. People like you to create a platform like the Well, and people like me that just teach people in open singing, and let's just, yes, connect people and spread
Yes,
vocal music.
yes.
So yeah,
And
spread the word. Be like Yaka.
come on, be like Meryl. Come on, that should be on a T-shirt. Be like Meryl. No, I think that also. I hope this conversation also makes other people on both sides. There are no sides, but sometimes choir people don't fully engage with, I don't know, circle singing, or there's sometimes a divide between the bigger group improvisations. I don't know, with people more than 16 in choirs, and then the small group sort of scene. But I think there's a lot more of an opportunity to connect and interchange, and there's so much learning that I see happening. And I love places like the Hamburg Body Rhythm Festival, which cross over and
Yeah.
cross pollinate from the different communities. And that's really, I think, what you were mentioning again. If there are those kinds of in-person events where there's a really strong base of values, of kind of someone that has thought, or a team that has thought of how to connect different dots, and also to open some more difficult conversations around cultural appropriation or bodyism, as they have at the festival, I think those things then really start counting. Because yes, the music itself can do the work, but I think then if we also put in the values that we want to see in the world at the same time, and use improvisation as a tool for sometimes difficult conversations, sometimes just a joyful sing, and sometimes everything else that's possible, that can then make a real difference.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I mean, you spoke about different worlds or different. I probably did as well, but um, I would like to clarify, like there might be different bubbles or different
Hmm.
scenes in which people are active musically. But in the end, we are all part of an even bigger bubble, which is vocal music, or even part of a bigger bubble, which is music, right? And
Yes.
I just, I was just part of another festival last week in Haarlem. It's called the Big Sing. I was a programmer for that festival, and we had classical music, we had classical sing-alongs, we had master classes from gospel choirs. We had with me, we actually did vocal games and quite a bit of improvisation. We did musical theater workshops, we did body rhythm workshops, and it's all just the use of the body, the use of the voice, and just vocal music. And that's like, for me, that's absolutely key in the future, that we create a space where people are curious about different music genres and realize that we take out this music of out of the boxes, and it's just vocal music that we create together. We're all in the same boat.
Yes, for more of the vocal music. And as we know, when those people meet, usually they just find out that they have so much to share, and that they have just the best time together, especially when they're not exactly from the same bubble. So
Mm.
I think, and as you say, the online world is great for some things, but the bubbles continue to increase. So we know that
Yeah.
people also want to make those changes in real life and sing together. So that's it for today. I want to thank you for your time, for all of your work. I can't wait to sing with you again, and I'm sure we can make other little shifts happen or events and more initiatives in the future to keep making this widely available to everyone.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to meeting you again at one of the events. And thank you so much for the invitation to come here and share thoughts about this world and what we are to do or what we can do to create more of this. I'm a big fan of the platform and what you have been doing, Aka. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mero, you too, and everyone that was listening. Thank you so much, and see you next time for In Conversation. Okay, speak
Thank
soon.
you. Bye.
Ciao.